Oh, hey guys. Wow, I was talking to myself for like 10 minutes. Hello. I was talking to myself for like a good 5 minutes, guys. How's it going? I'm already stressed out. That's why I hate doing streams. I'm not good at it, man. I'm so bad at it. Every time it's like a new experience of terribleness. Um there's always something that's changed, and I am the eternal boomer. I'm now officially 31 years old, which gives me the excuse to be a boomer. However, despite my boomer status, despite my eternal horrible boomer status, I have something that I thought was important enough that I should bring it to you guys in the form of a stream just to get it out because I will potentially make a video on this. However, I'm not really sure if there's enough here to actually make a video on, and the reason why I say that is because, as we'll go into, we are going to look at the ravings of a lunatic mind, to quote young Frankenstein, okay? Um, there's no science in what we're going to look at. There's nothing particularly, data, there's no data, there's some anecdotal information. It's from a psychoanalytic journal, which psychoanalysis is already tertiarily related to science as it is. But this is a study that's been passed around for a couple of days now, and what I found frustrating, I guess not really frustrating is not the right word, but what I wanted more of is I wanted to read the actual study. So what I of course did was went and found the study and read it, and I have perhaps shared, what methods through which other people within the YouTube community can have access to this paper so that they can cover it in a more comprehensive and probably more amusing way than I'll be able to. But again, the way that I come at things is from a very social science background, so the way that I look at stuff is going to be different from how other people look at stuff, and for that reason only is why I thought I would just read the study very quickly. Now, being completely honest, I paid for this study. I surely did, and I have the receipts. So if there's an issue there, we could get to it, but that. Oh, hello again. Whoops. Fuck. Hello, I'm the Eternal Boomer. I didn't have this all set up. Fuck me, dude. Come on now. No, I'm getting so nervous. Did I? Okay, so let me re-say what what I said when I was cut off because I didn't have OBS set up right. I have here my libertarian GIF that says I can do what I want. I will be providing critique of this paper. I will be providing criticism of it. I did pay to have access to this paper. However, I would say that in general, all of the public should have access to pieces of literature like this, particularly as they become utilized and spread throughout the public and used in the public discourse. Further, I don't know if I got cut out, but if you do feel in any way obliged to help support me being a giant boomer, there is a Streamlabs link at the top, but let's get over with it and start looking at this paper because it's kind of a nightmare. I'll be periodically looking at the chat to know if there's any audio issues and stuff, because obviously I boomer everything up and I'm incapable of not fucking everything over. Okay, so I'm gonna just take my little libertarian warning and make it a little tinier down there. I can still do what I want. Again, I paid for this. There should be no barriers in the way of science. That is the subtitle headline of Sci-Hub, and I completely believe in it. There should be no barriers in the way of science. So, what everyone has access to, which is typical of any scientific paper, is the abstract here. I will go over this quickly because most people have read it. I think pretty much everyone's gone over it at this point, and I sincerely, sincerely hope and ask that other content creators read this paper to see just what the hell we're looking at when we're talking about this critical race theory, this whiteness stuff, as it manifests within academia, because this is particularly heinous in my opinion. And it becomes more heinous when you realize that this was published by a working psychotherapist who has clients and is reporting on his clients in this work. The abstract reads, whiteness is a condition one first acquires and then one has, a malignant parasite-like condition to which white people, in quotes, have a particular susceptibility. The condition is foundational, generating characteristic ways of being in one's body, in one's mind, and in one's world. Parasitic whiteness renders its host's appetites voracious, insatiable, and perverse. These deformed appetites particularly target non-white peoples. So this is confusing. This is confusing prima facie, right? It particularly targets white people. However, it also particularly targets non-white people. You have contradicted yourself in your abstract within 2 sentences. Good work. I mean, truly, that's impressive. It's hard to contradict yourself that quickly. Once established, these appetites are nearly impossible to eliminate. Effective treatment consists of a combination of psychic and social historical interventions. Such interventions can reasonably aim only to reshape whiteness-infiltrated appetites, to reduce their intensity, redistribute their aims, and occasionally turn those aims towards the work of reparation. When remembered and represented, the ravages wreaked by the chronic condition can function either as warning, quote, never again, or as temptation, great again, uh-oh. That sounds like an orange man who's bad. Memorialization alone, therefore, is no guarantee against regression. There is not yet a permanent cure. Well, Ricada, I was listening to his stream. I sent, oh wait, I didn't do anything. I may have sent some people, just some things about this study. I was listening to his stream earlier, though, and I thought that he brought up a good point, which is that, the author here, who is white himself, by the way, let's be very clear there, the author is white. What do you think his permanent cure for whiteness is? Because I think I know. I think we probably all know what the permanent cure for whiteness is. Now, of course, the author, his name is Dr. Moss, Donald Moss, would say that, again, whiteness is, it is something that is particularly susceptible to white people, but also particularly susceptible to non-white people. So exactly what is the permanent cure for whiteness if both black and white people are susceptible to it? Tyro Moonhopper, did you upload the PDF to my server? Because I didn't send it to you. Tyro, if you uploaded it, that's not on me. To be fair, I think that this should be free for everyone to read, by the way. It should be free for everyone to read. That's why I'm going to read it. That's why I'm going to assess it, because it should be free for everyone to read. Okay. However, I think, the author is white. We'll look him up real quick here. This is him. Yeah. My thing is a little bit messed up because, yeah, if you can see him over here on the right, this is the guy who's written this paper. It's been getting a lot of traction over the last 24 hours, but again, I think we should actually read it because the tendency in these kinds of things is to jump to conclusions, of course. But we do need read the quote-unquote research. So, and of course, this is taken from a PDF, so there'll be some odd breaks in the paper, but let's begin with the first sentence, which really sets the tone. This is not a traditionally organized psychoanalytic text. No, Dr. Moss, it's not organized whatsoever. It's the ravings of a lunatic mind, but I digress. No clear path links my argument to that of my predecessors. By that, he means he has no rationale for his argument, okay? He means he has no citations, and in fact, we can check that because if we go down here, all the way down to the bottom, and we check the citations, there's 4 of them. Sep C 2020, The Long War Against Slavery, review of Vincent Brown's Tacky's Revolt, the story of the Atlantic Slave War, The New Yorker, so a journalistic outlet. Freud, he cites Freud. Harris, 1993, Whiteness is Property, Harvard Law Review. And Nixon, Slow Violence and the Environmentalism of the Poor, which is another book. This is unbelievable for levels of citation. I don't think I've ever read a published piece of research that has had 4 citations. But, again, he tells us why in his his second sentence here. Because nothing in the world agrees with his arguments because it's crazy, okay? This formal peculiarity might be the product of my effort to braid together 2 incompatible voices, to write simultaneously from both inside and outside the affliction I mean to study. Each position, inside and outside, offers an irreducibly distorted view. The one by the limits of sincere introspection, the other by the limits of theorized observation. The 2 perspectives turbulently converged during a recent experience in South Africa. We dropped off a black... Okay, so I want to be really clear. This is what's going to happen from here on out, pretty much. This is, again, phrased as an academic, scientific piece of research. It's all just his freaking personal experiences and his thoughts, okay? I don't know how this was published. I am not really familiar with this journal too much, but it's a psychiatric... Well, it's the Psychoanalytic Association, which I'm guessing is quite Freudian in... Is the mic low? Sorry, I'll raise it up a little bit. Is that a bit better? I'm guessing this Psychoanalytic Association journal, which I am not generally familiar with. I mean, it looks... If you didn't know better, you might think it was the APA, the American Psychological Association, which it is not. It seems very Freudian in nature, so maybe this is more normative for their field to not cite studies, to just, like, give your experiences. But as we will see in a little bit, he will cite quote-unquote case studies. And remember, this man is a practicing psychotherapist. He has clients. He has patients. Oh, okay. We dropped off a black woman hitchhiker at her ramshackle township home, one of hundreds we could see all jammed together helter-skelter on a barren, cut-off, undeserved piece of land, apartheid segregation still firmly in place. At the back of the hotel, we spoke to one of the staff about how troubled we'd been by what we'd seen. The young woman responded, oh, excuse me, he shouldn't have assumed her gender. The young woman responded without hesitation. Well, she said, also, by the way, this should be in quotations, my dude. You can't even do basic grammatical stuff. Okay, cool for you. Well, she said, it's really simple. They have their houses, we have ours. She spoke with a serene confidence, pulling us in, indifferent to whatever resistance we, in our silence, might have felt. So this guy's, I'm guessing, some sort of outsider to this area, comes in and judges them. Immediately judges them. Okay. Also, again, like, he doesn't... There's a format error 2 paragraphs in. They have their houses, we have ours. That sentence, and especially the word we, repellent and implicating, inspires, haunts, and deforms what follows. Okay. I will focus on whiteness as a condition, one first acquires and then has a malignant, parasitic-like condition to which white people have a particular susceptibility, except you also said black people have a particular susceptibility to it in your abstract. We'll continue. The condition is foundational, generating characteristic ways of being in one's body, in one's mind, and in one's world. Parasitic whiteness often renders its host's appetites voracious, insatiable, and perverse. These deformed appetites particularly target non-white peoples. So, do you see, again, here's where it comes in. White people are susceptible to whiteness, but it targets non-white people to become also susceptible to whiteness. Great. Once established, these appetites are nearly impossible to eliminate. Effective treatment consists of a combination of psychic and social historical interventions. Such interventions can reasonably aim to reshape whiteness's infiltrated appetites, to reduce their intensities, redistribute their aims, and occasionally turn those aims towards the work of reparation. This is... Oh, wait, I already read this, didn't I? No, he just restates... Oh, cool. I didn't even notice this. He literally pretty much restates his fucking abstract. This is improper, by the way. This is purely improper to use a whole freaking segment. I didn't even notice this because I was reading through it fairly quickly. He restated his abstract in his first paragraph. Oh, my lad. When I was in high school, I had this really good math teacher who taught primarily geometry. She was a woman of an Indian background. She was from India, and she would say, in a very heavy Indian accent, and I'm not trying to be disparaging, she would say, "This is middle school work. This is middle school work, dude. This is middle school work." But we'll get there. This is middle school work. Whiteness as a way of being and a way of knowing. In what follows, I will capitalize whiteness to signify parasitic whiteness, an acquired multidimensional condition. Hang on, let me really quickly apply an implication to his capitalization of whiteness. So if you haven't noticed, and there's no reason you would, but if you pay a lot of attention to social issues and stuff like that, which I think most of you probably in my audience do, there's a idea of political blackness, and there's people who have black skin, and that's black with a lowercase, and then there's blackness as it is a political movement, and that's black with an uppercase B. So he is saying that whiteness as it is parasitic is somehow equivalent to what we would call political blackness, I would imagine, and I would guess that's why he's doing it. For he says that whiteness should never be confused with lowercase whiteness, commonly used as a signifier of racial identity. So again, he's saying whiteness has nothing to do with race, but it does have something to do with race, as he's already prefaced us with. So it does have something to do with race, but it also doesn't have something to do with race, because anyone can be afflicted with whiteness. It's the same way of someone like, what's her name? Being politically black, Robin DiAngelo, politically black. That's what this capital W here in the white indicates. Parasitic whiteness, let me get started again. Parasitic whiteness infiltrates our drives early on. The infiltrated drive binds id, ego, superego into a singular entity, empowered to dismiss and override all forms of resistance. The drive apparatus of whiteness divides the object world into two distinct zones. In one, the whiteness-infiltrated drive works in familiar ways: inhibited, checked, distorted, transformed, susceptible. That is, to standard neurotic deformations. Okay? Okay. In one, whiteness's infiltrated drive works in familiar ways. So, in one side, whiteness is neurotic. The other one, however, none of this holds true. There, the liberated drive goes rogue, unchecked, and unlimited, inhibited by neither of these protests of its objects nor the counterforces of its internal struggles. He's actually, legitimately just talking about ego and superego, by the way, and id, but he's redefining id, superego, ego, superego, and id into variations of whiteness, and that makes sense that he is a Freudian, and he's basically just taking Freudian terms of understanding the psyche and reapplying them to this concept that he's developed of this capital W whiteness. And if you thought you could escape from this, any infant is vulnerable to the parasite of whiteness. The extent of the infant's vulnerability depends on how the infant is mapped, how it is positioned, where it is placed. He does not probably mean physical placement, like where in a room you place an infant. Although, we'll see. All infants orient themselves in relation to a first initial mapping line. On this side of the line will live its familiars, us. While on that side of the line live the strangers, them. Okay, this is actually correct. Sort of. The music in the background, it's just something I pulled from Storyblocks. It's just like a hip-hop beat. It's got like some Celtic stuff in it. So he's actually kind of correct here in that the way that humans form cognitive heuristics, which is the way through which we understand the world from the most basic sense-making orientation. Cognitive heuristics allow us to sense-make from an evolutionary perspective. And I always use the example of, if you see a stick in the grass, you're going to jump back because it could very well be a snake and not a stick. That is a natural, reactive, defensive response to something. By the same measure, we come to know certain things more well than we do other things. Particularly, the first thing that we know as children is usually the faces of our parents. As such, there's a good body of research that seems to indicate that when children have mixed-race parents, or when they have parents who are adoptive of a different race, the faces that they come to respond to most quickly via a heuristic processing analysis, I can't think of the name of it right this second. That horrible test that's awful that I always talk shit about. That test where they show people faces really quickly to decide if you're racist, which is an awful test, and for whatever reason the name of it's eluding me for the second. But when children have parents of a mixed race background or adoptive parents who are of a different race than they are, then they tend to have faster response times to parents of the race that their mother is. That's generally how it is, and this is essentially what he's talking about, is the familiars versus others. But that's, again, this is all evolutionarily based, and it's also based on our upbringing. Okay, so it's not like this whiteness is so pervasive that if a white child is raised in a black family with you guys probably know the name of that test. Did you get it? Implicit bias, implicit associations test. Thank you. Gawker's death rattle. Thank you. Implicit associations test, the IAT. So people will respond to the faces of their mothers more quickly. That applies to white people. That applies to black people. That applies to Asian people. It doesn't matter. That seems to be a constant. We respond to the faces of our mothers. But he doesn't get that. I'll go forward. Sorry for the tangent. For every infant, this mapping line founds, delineates, and defines the place of the stranger. That's true. We do define ourselves versus outgroups and others pretty much instantaneously as children. We always define ourselves in some degree by what we are not. For example, boys define themselves by what girls are to define what boy is. And this could get into some of the weird gender stuff, but, you know, girls have more of a, FDDCS JXK. Sorry, you got it first. I didn't notice. I just looked at the chat real quick. Thank you. Shoot. This is why. Because then I lose my place. Oh. Shoot. The idea of the stranger. The stranger is anything that we're not. From the most basic level, it defines, this is me and this is another person, and trying to define the self versus the other to understand the levels of bodily boundaries. But then as we become older, we understand that there are more ways of being a stranger. Someone outside of the family, someone outside of your town, someone outside of your race and outside of your sex. And unfortunately, that is the way that humans define themselves. We're inherently a social species. We are tribalistically based, and that will always be the way that we work. We will always define ourselves based on our differences, based on heuristic processing. You can change this a little bit, but you can't destroy it. I'll try to go a little bit faster now. I just want to make sure I'm adding commentary so I don't get sued into oblivion by this dude. Here, I'll make it easy. Light up a cigarette. As I'm a little nervous, if you guys can't tell, I hate streaming. As such, it marks the site of the first organized and enduring representation of an eternal source of anxiety. Hey, like I have. Beginning with the onset of stranger anxiety, the infant, while working to find its place in the world, will perpetually aim for safety, avoiding as best as it can any external object located on the dangerous stranger side of the line. Yeah, that's typical evolutionary psychology, my dude. That's basic stuff, okay? Oh, I failed to light my cigarette. Parasitic whiteness works to turn this foundational line into an impermeable wall to permanently fix the place of the non-white stranger on the far side of the wall there to be sorted and categorized and eventually mastered. Provide some evidence, dude. Provide me with some fucking evidence for that claim. First of all, this isn't well defined. And then, in what way is this different from the fact that black people respond to black faces faster when they're raised by a black mother? There's going to be no evidence, by the way. There's no data in this whole study. I'll pick it up a bit. Where were we? I lost my place. Okay. Nope. Yeah. Okay. Here it is. Got it. Are merely unruly sexualities. So this is an interesting thing, right? He immediately goes from race right into sex. And that will be an ongoing theme you'll find throughout this paper that I find really bizarre. But again, he's a Freudian, so that's going to be where he's coming from it. He inexorably wants to link all of race and sex together, and he finds them to be interchangeable sort of things, essentially. As such, our merely unruly sexualities may exert a constant pressure to eroticize the bodies and beings of strangers, transgressively aiming to defy the wall, to integrate those bodies and beings, to take them in. So, but see, if he was to apply this equally, which he's not, this would say that all races sexualize all other races, which there is some of. I mean, in reality, let's be honest, like a lot of white men and black men and people of all races like Asian women because they tend to be slimmer and tinier and more young looking. Like, okay, I get what he's talking about there, but it's not how he's going to explain it. He's going to say it's something only white people do. But the rogue, or some people love Latin women because they've got big butts, you know, stereotypically. But the rogue sexualities of parasitic whiteness add to that. They negatively eroticize non-whites' bodies and beings. Only non-white bodies are eroticized. Do you understand what this guy just said? He says that our culture does not eroticize white people's bodies in any way. Only non-white bodies. So, I don't know. Who's your favorite white actress? I love Mila Jovovich. I think she's really hot, but apparently the fact that her husband puts her naked in everything she's in is not eroticizing her in any way. Just an interesting thought. These objects now marked are wanted still, but wanted not to be taken in, but simply to be taken, not to be loved, but to be hated. So every white guy who's got a non-white wife and every white woman who's got a non-white husband hates them, is his proposition here. Holding these objects in place, inflicting pain on them, this sadism becomes the exquisite and economical solution to any apparent conflict between the wanting and the hating. Hey, this is that thing Tariq Nasheed said the other day, right? About the buck breaking. I hope they make that movie. Oh, the memes alone have been worth it. That was Tariq, wasn't it? Oh my gosh. Sorry, my pauses. I'm using drugs as in tobacco to temporarily minimize some of my anxiety about me fucking up this stream. Parasitic whiteness further demeans its non-white bodies and beings by way of naturalizing systems of naming and classification. Oh, we go back here into the Smithsonian stuff, which was, I went over the researcher who was predominantly responsible for where the Smithsonian drew its data for that, things like being on time is whiteness. And this is, again, a thing, like the idea of taxonomy and science and naming, even, these are all white things. Once it has mapped and transformed its non-white objects into fixed taxonal objects. Oh, he used the word taxonomy. Cool, I didn't notice that. The rogue sexuality of parasitic whiteness can expand its aim. It permanently maps them as external away from there, which is what you're doing to white people, by the way. You're permanently mapping them as others. Wherever that is, these objects are available for limitless use, limitless labor of limitless kind. Okay. I want to reiterate, part of the premise of this paper is that whiteness is something that white people are subject to, but are not uniquely and exclusively subject to. And the reason why he's making this argument, right, is because there are a lot of black people who, for example, voted for Donald Trump. There are a lot of Asian people who tend to be more conservative, okay? So that's why they're trying to turn whiteness into a political category as something that you can fall into as a trap, which is what he's doing here. So he's basically saying anything bad that exists in the world, any kind of abuse of other people, of othering, of dehumanization, is a product of whiteness. And if you find that in people who are not of a European background, it's because they have inherited this psychopathic or psychotic type of whiteness as a mental disorder. And we'll get into his case studies because they're, oh my gosh. Wowee. All right. Sorry about that. I'm pretty thoroughly a bit more chilled out. Okay. Parasitic whiteness generates a state of constantly eroticized excitement. Do you guys feel erotic about being white every day? A drift towards frenzy. Fix, control, and arouse, want, hate, and terrorize. Whiteness resides at this always volatile edge in a state of permanent skirmish, always taking on the never obliterated resistances of its non-white objects. Opaque to itself and hyper-conscious of those objects, whiteness pursues the impossible. A stable synthesis, an end point. Of what? This is actual jargon, okay? Like, I really... You guys know me. I read actual scientific papers all day, every day. It's what I do for fun and what I do for my YouTube channel. And even I don't quite understand what he's trying to get at here. It can therefore never rest. Blindly then it continues forward, unendingly bent on conquering. There seems to be no backward path, no mode of retreat. It faces an interminable forward march. If only it could totally and permanently transform these objects, turn the once feared and unknown into the now reduced and measured. So again, here's the issue with the scientific method. That's why there's no science in this. He has a problem with quantitative science, and that is what he finds to be a part of whiteness. To turn the once unique and overwhelming into the now fungible and owned. Fungible. I always pronounce that word wrong. Whiteness originates not in innocence, but in entitlement. Oh. But remember, black people can inherit whiteness too. So if a black person is entitled, it's not because they have some personality flaw, it's because they have this trait of whiteness, which white people are most susceptible to. Presumably because they invented it in some way. Dude, like, you could wax poetic about this dumb stuff that you want to wax poetic about, but maybe you could use, like, not another term other than whiteness, okay? Elatus says this makes us sound pretty awesome, actually. Well, it's his way of explaining imperialism, while pretending like no other people on Earth, not in Asia, not in Africa, have ever been in any way imperialistic. And that's demonstrably false. Quote, and God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness. Well, he just quotes the Bible here. Really? So, interesting here that because he quotes the Bible, I guess he's saying that Middle Eastern people are all white. Because, I mean, I don't know. That's up to your interpretation, I guess. I suppose he ascribes to the sort of Aryan a definition of whiteness. I'm not sure. Whiteness, taking this injunction as its own, transforms into an epistemology of entitled dominion, a mode of coming to know in which identity and entitlement are fused. We are licensed at birth and therefore entitled to find, capture, dissect, and overpower our targeted objects. Yeah, this does make white people kind of sound... It makes them sound like this crazy, unbelievable villain. And not just a villain, but like the big bad of something, right? An insatiable desire to find, capture, dissect, and overpower. As such, we will finally come to know and take dominion over them. Within the terms of the epistemology of entitled dominion, knowledge becomes both a sign of superiority and an instrument of power. The steps from knowledge to dominion are clear. The more we know... Why is we capitalized? Is this because he's white? That's because he's white. Oh, look at this. He has to capitalize we because on some level he's also doing his little mea culpa here. He's self-flagellating. So he has to capitalize. I didn't notice this before. Okay. Oh my gosh. Alrighty. Ooh. The more we know, then, the more we can do, the more we can do, the more we can control, the more we can control. This reads schizophrenic, by the way. Is it just me that this repetition, it sounds a little unhinged? I'm using schizophrenic in a non-clinical way. The more we can dominate, and finally, the more we can dominate, the more I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. That's what it says. The more we are realizing our I'm sorry, get it together. The more we are realizing our divine mandate to have dominion over every other living thing that moveth upon the earth, triumphantly submitting to his mandate, whiteness pursues a utopia of permanent satisfaction and assigns to non-white people the task of being its ideal, infinitely needs satisfying object, there to service its voracious and uncheckable appetites. Dude, this guy hates himself. Okay, I mean, he really, as a psychoanalyst, should probably see a psychoanalyst, okay? Okay, Donald, you might want to work some of this stuff out for yourself, my dude. Okay, whiteness in action, inside and out. When targeting individuals, whiteness opportunistically attaches to any psychic structure that maps self and object vertically. This does not mean anything, by the way. These vertical planes are ubiquitous and as such provide an abundance of potential host receptors for parasitic whiteness. Again, this sounds like it means something, but it doesn't, okay? As far as I can tell, he's been using word like verticality and stuff when it doesn't actually have any kind of statistical meaning is just someone essentially waxing poetic. They're using overtly more complicated verbiage to try and say, I definitely sound academic, don't I? But I don't think so. Eric Muller, do you know that we, the French are coming thing? That's what I was thinking of. 6 separate yet intersecting such planes should be kept in the mind here. 1. The ego's foundation in a vertical split. Pleasure inside, pain outside. Good subject here, bad object there. The original object, then, is the bad object, the demeaned one, below and threatening, of whom Freud writes because, again, of course, this guy only really cites Freud. Like, I have mentioned Freud in videos, and when I just mention him, I'll get, 50 comments that go Freud's debunked. It's like, I know Freud's debunked. Just mentioning him doesn't mean I'm giving him the go-ahead that I accept what he's doing and what he's talking about. This guy is citing Freud unironically. The ego hates, abhors, and pursues with intent to destroy. Again, though, the funny thing here is that he's essentially he's replacing the word ego with whiteness. Okay? That's what's happening here. This guy's a Freudian psychoanalyst. He thinks he's apparently breaking new ground by reiterating Freud, but replacing Freud's definition of ego with the concept of whiteness. A concept predominantly related to white people, but that black people can catch, and non-white people can catch, essentially, as a disease. And that is and again, now we have 1 citation, guys. We're 1 for 4. So we got 3 more to go. 2, the subject-object world of the paranoid schizoid position. The emerging subject here is in constant struggle to maintain itself against threats emerging from bad objects, to withstand them, and finally to fix and locate them elsewhere enough, below enough, to settle in and to keep going. Excuse me. The subject-object world of narcissism, of grandiosity and diminishment, of the master and the slave, of the all and the nothing, the highest and the lowest. 4. The subject-object world of perversion, the subject-object world of perversion, of the user and the used. So again, this is all going to go back to this Freud quote. That's where this is all coming from. The person and the thing, the whole and the part, the owner and the owned, the dominator and the dominated. 5. The subject-object world of the Oedipal triangle, of higher and lower, of power and powerlessness, of having and having not, of being able to and not being able to, of satisfaction and despair. 6. The subject-object world of the authoritarian superego. Listen to this representative example. I was a decent person with her, with my dog, Cleo. I was never sadder than when she died. Stupid, fucking stupid, shut up. Why'd I say that? Just blabbing. Get to work. What's a fucking dog got to do with anything? You fat piece of shit. So this is him quoting a patient of his, by the way. Okay. This is not unusual in psychiatric kind of stuff. Well, psychiatric maybe, but psychotherapy stuff, which is all kind of Freudian bullshit. So he's citing a patient of his here who is coping with the death of his dog and is saying that this patient struggling with the death of his dog is whiteness. Okay. I don't know where else to exactly go from there. I mean, because this is the kind of person we're dealing with, and where he's coming from in his mind logically, is that essentially being upset that your dog died and that you weren't able to do anything about it, and trying to deny your own emotions, and hating himself, is all a manifestation of being white. Sit on that for just a second. Oh, wow. The interior verticality is obvious. The severity, the top-down conviction, the malign, domineering, the tyrannical accuser, the cowering accused. He's accusing himself, by the way, here, dude. He's blaming himself. And the fact that he's blaming himself is, to this guy, evidence of white domineering whiteness. Along each of these this is the verticality he's talking about, of him blaming himself. In a way, he's kind of maybe bringing up the idea of the white savior complex. I think that could be what he's talking about in terms of white verticality. But imagine that you're talking to a psychotherapist, and you're crying about the death of your dog, and he's sitting there just being like, yeah, you have parasitic whiteness. Okay. Along each of these vertical planes, subject-object relations are defined by power and grounded in the fantasy of sovereignty. And along each of these vertical planes, safety, satisfaction, and pleasure are necessarily fragile and contingent. Everything I have, everything I am, can be lost. My strength turned to abjection. My inclusion to exile, my calm to terror. Again, I'm never really sure what he's talking about. But I guess he's saying that white people are... This is white fragility, that's what it is. White fragility, white people are afraid of losing things like their own dogs. So, that's what it is. That's what it is. It's his fragility because his dog died. He should be celebrating it or something, I guess. I don't know. This vertical fragility makes us all susceptible to parasitic whiteness. So if you're black and you're sad that your dog died, that's because you're suffering from parasitic whiteness, okay? Oh my god. This man, I don't believe, thinks non-white people are human, okay? I think that, from what I'm reading here, I think that's his mindset. I don't think he believes that non-white people are human in the same way white people are. Or that maybe white people aren't the human ones, but what most of us, and because all people experiences emotions and care for their animals and stuff like that, while all of us would generally say, hey, yeah, caring about your dog is a good thing, he would say, no, that's parasitic whiteness. Whiteness promises to turn anxious singularity into confident plurality. I hate this man's overuse of vernacular and verbiage. He's trying to be so verbose, and I can tell that he thinks it makes him more intelligent or makes him sound more intelligent, but my dude, if you guys can't tell, I may stumble a little bit, but I have no problem reading any of these words, no matter how kind of unusual they are, because I read shit like this every fucking goddamn day. But I can tell that's the only reason he has this published in a journal is because he thinks if he uses words like terms like anxious singularity and confident plurality, it makes him feel smart. I hope that you feel smart, my dude. Isolated frailty into collective might, whiteness caresses its host with reassurances. Never again, it can seem to murmur, will you have to be all alone, and always strained and always jeopardized. Will necessarily be susceptible to this performed dream of the always empowered we are. Hang on. Sorry, clear my throat. Okay, hang on though. So only white people have a collective identity. There's no idea of collective unification or collective social group identity for anyone who's not white is what he's proposing, or this idea of this W, capital W white, that anyone can be a part of if they're a bad person, because he already defined that what white is to basically be a psychopath, is to be pure ego. Okay. But then what is the group of we? People who are ego-driven? People who are driven by ego rather than id or superego? Is that what you're saying? I suppose so. But of course, whiteness does not limit its opportunistic work to individuals. Oh, here we go. Here's the group stuff. Ah, man, my question. As if manna from heaven. Here's an answer. But of course, whiteness does not limit its opportunistic works to individuals. It easily infiltrates even groups founded on the protection of individuals, on democratic principles, which I guarantee he doesn't believe in, on a systemic concern for fragile singularities. But when this group when this group contacts an ominous vertical plane, when, for example, it feels jeopardized by external or internal threat, its founding horizontal principles can suddenly seem naive and dangerous. Opportunistic whiteness then can provide an instantaneous alternative, readily transforming the group's dynamic Slow down. Readily transforming the group's democratic impulses into nativistic ones. As with susceptible individuals, all parasitic whiteness needs from its susceptible pluralities is a disruptive collision with verticality, a threat from below. We can sense one such threat across the world now, refugees in need, demanding a place and disrupting the democratic assumptions of inclusiveness. What the fuck do you mean? Is he saying that accepting refugees disrupts democracy? It's kind of the opposite. I mean, I'm not in favor of, like, just open the borders. Obviously not. I did vote for Donald Trump twice. But it is also written on the Statue of Liberty, right? Give me your poor, your weak. I don't see anything about democracy, such as it exists in the Western world and as we understand it, to have some kind of, it's a democratic assumption of inclusiveness. Okay. Again, I'm not sure what kind of argument he's making here. It's not entirely clear. 1 second. I opened my window for 1 minute, and my allergies get terrible. My apologies. I'm so sorry. It's gonna screw up my voice. I knew it. I knew I opened the window, it would mess up my voice. Where were we? Okay. Whiteness is always ready to respond to such a threat, to answer the call. Once installed, its epistemology of entitled dominion will license its host, individual or group, to power without limit, force without restriction, violence without mercy. What? Okay, hang on. Whiteness is what allows us to invite in refugees and to allow inclusiveness. And through I want you guys to be really clear what he just said here. By inviting in refugees, and by this democratic idea of inclusiveness, we answer the call as white people, or white-coded people, or people who have this parasitic whiteness. And then when we let in refugees, and we are inclusive, we are dominating with violence and without mercy those whom we have let in. Do you guys understand what his argument was there? He is saying, don't allow in refugees. Do not be accepting, do not be inclusive, because then you can inadvertently or advertently, probably advertently in his opinion, expose other people who are non-white to whiteness. Whiteness now enjoys the liberty to freely enact its foundational epistemology of entitled dominion. Entitled dominion not only defines its objects, we can see them gathering at our southern border, it also sets up the frame inside of which all definition is possible. Anything outside of the frame is by virtue of its outsideness both unreal and impossible. The voice of whiteness's entitled dominion, inside or out, is firm and final. You are not a people, you are labor. You are not a person, you are a deviant. This is not desire, this is sickness. You are not in need, you are a failure. You are not your own, you are ours. Okay, a couple things to break down there. So again, his issue is when we let in people at the border who he's so upset and concerned by, when we let them in, we then transform them into whiteness. Because we value their labor and ask for them to work, that's a part of whiteness. Because we ask them to ascribe to and try to assimilate into American norms, that means we are treating them as others and treating them as deviants. Because we say, again, that this is not a desire, this is... I don't know what he means by this sentence, actually. You're not in need, you are a failure. Well... not people who are coming from impoverished from impoverished countries are not failures. But people can come from within America and be failures and also in need. Just saying. You are not your own, you are ours. Yeah, that's why the left is so totally not fond of big social movements that are so inclusive of one of us, gooble gobble. Okay, sure. What this is he's angry about, he's angry here about the idea of America welcoming in immigrants from other nations and accepting them and making them part of Americanness, which I think he's also conflating with whiteness as Americanness, because he did all that, stuff about the border. Oh, here's where it gets fun. And by fun, I mean, we start to get what's going on. Personal reflections. Personal reflections. One sec. Oh, allergies. The infiltration of whiteness can begin modestly. For 2 years, when we were 3 and 4... Okay, this is just him talking about himself, okay? I skimmed through this part the most because this is awful, but this is going to reveal everything about him, okay? Because this is just his personal story. This is him talking about his life so we can get an idea of where he's coming from with all that nonsense that we just heard. Bobby had a speech impediment due to a severe cleft palate. I was the only kid on the block who could understand him when he spoke. I loved Bobby. When school started, though, I went to a regular school while Bobby was sent to one for disabled kids. That was the end of the friendship. We never spoke again. So you just abandoned your friend because you got... Yeah, here he goes. I wanted no part of him now. Something was wrong, weak, and deficient about him. I wanted only to be with kids of my kind. Bobby was now part of nature, part of what I would learn about. He was no longer like me, one of those who would do the learning. No one told me to respond this way. No one told me not to. I had had what amounted to a revelation. I simply shunned him, turned away. That shunning, that act of mapping him now as an object, no longer a subject like me, this marked the site where whiteness might begin its work. No, dude, you're an asshole. Let me psychoanalyze you. You're an asshole. You're a piece of shit. Now, I could chalk this up to you being a kid. You're 4, apparently. Kids are sometimes awful. If you look at the research on this, when you look at like how children develop empathy, empathy for children goes up and up and up and up and up and up and up until about like age 9, right before puberty. And then it plummets, giant dearth of empathy towards other people around puberty. And then it goes back to normal levels afterwards. If this guy is 4, he couldn't even have that as an excuse. It would make sense if he was like a teenager and his empathy dropped and he became a bully, but this guy's 5, 6. He just shunned his friend. I mean, maybe he didn't. Maybe Bobby, I mean, he went to another school. Maybe they didn't hang out because they didn't go to school together. He's over-pathologizing this, I think, in general. But if he's not over-pathologizing it, then he's the asshole. Okay, to use Reddit terminology. I had drawn a line, established a premise at the age of 5. Whiteness could then opportunistically inaugurate a stepwise... Okay. Stepwise is usually used as a term in statistics, as in a stepwise analysis. I think this guy does not actually know how we usually in the sciences use the term stepwise. And he's using it because he thinks it makes him sound smart. Oh, I wasn't expecting that. That one actually tickled me. Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. Stepwise analysis. No, you did not conduct a stepwise analysis, my dude. Oh my gosh. Okay. Inaugurate the stepwise expansion of this premise, proceeding as though it were my ally. Together we... Stop, Aiden. Come on. This is just so funny to me that he would use a word like this. Hang on, let me see, like, what does Google say stepwise? Because I only really know this term from the statistical analysis perspective. So, like, we would say, like, a stepwise regression. Okay. A series of distinct stages. Alright. Well, yeah, but that's what it is in a regression. When I typed in stepwise into Google, it immediately went, did you mean stepwise regression? So, okay. Okay. He did not do a stepwise regression analysis, but whatever. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that that's a thing that really hit me. That is something that would not hit anyone else. Yeah, stepwise is in a stepwise regression. Okay. Together, we then sought and found more markers of deficiency until we finally arrived at color. Color offers whiteness. What? now firmly housed as an apparently limitless, instantly available field for our expansion. Providential and clear, an opportunity to realize itself, to arrive at its adult, fully developed form. Color provides a universe of suitable objects placed there like gifts to be captured and crushed, all like a whim. Like for so many Gullivered children, ants are there to be crushed underfoot, butterflies to be locked in a jar. You, have psychopathy, my dude. That's what's going on here. You have some deep form of mental illness, okay? You lack empathy. And because you lack empathy, you think everyone else lacks empathy as well because you don't experience it. That's why you have these weird thoughts about non-white people, about crushing them, and about killing ants and putting butterflies in jars. I'm not a psychoanalyst, but I am involved in the field of psychology. And I would say you have some trait markers of antisocial personality disorder, okay? Just saying. Just saying. Those crushed ants and suffocated butterflies, victims of nearly cellular narcissism, this is the most pretentious thing I think I've ever read, offer Whiteness a platform on which to begin. But again, I think this guy has something borderlining on antisocial personality disorder if he has these kinds of thoughts. At least I'd be concerned. Again, I can't diagnose. Of course not. I'm in no way a clinical psychologist. I'm a research psychologist, which is freaking stupid. But I'm concerned by this type of language. Once begun, the rest can seem like simple common sense, the preservation of the host's proper place, somewhere near the apex, within the only proper and permanent order of things, in all caps. Well, capital case. Title case, excuse me. But first, before arriving at its fully developed form, Whiteness has to begin, and for this, nearly anything, even a little boy's cleft palate, will do. Whiteness began its work, It began its work only after I had done mine. I had loved Bobby. No, you didn't. I was a lonely kid, and he was the best thing. Oh! He betrays himself. He was the best thing I had. You didn't love this kid. The best thing you had. I mean, do you guys ever, look back at your childhood friends and have thoughts like this about them? Yeah, they were shitty, but they were the best I had. I was unprepared to lose him. In fact, not only unprepared, but in retrospect unable. My fear, my sadness, my loss. Bobby and I would no longer be together, yet you never tried to reconnect with him. Had been erased by my mapping revelation, his wound confirming my intactness. This seemed a fair exchange for losing a friend. I was grateful to have escaped from an unbearable loss. Because you forgot him? The fragile attachment of love and friendship has been transformed into the robust attachments of hatred and revulsion. So you came to hate him! Okie dokie. Again, this man should seek help. I know that he is a psychoanalyst, but this is actually kind of disturbing what I'm reading here. I skimmed through this before. I didn't read through it proper. I read through some of this, but I didn't really get the full gist of it. I'll try to hurry up. We're about halfway done. I didn't mean for this to go too long. It's already midnight here, but I thought this would be a interesting thing to do. Oh, 1 second, let me take a drink. of seltzer. My voice is dying. Hang on. I should put vodka in this, though. That would probably help me out. Okay. Jaya Suryan, sorry if I mispronounced your name, you said there's a friend from when you were a teenager who you feel that about, to be fair. I think that is possible, too. I mean, maybe this kid did something else that he's not letting on to, and... Yeah, only the best I had, not anything else. Yeah. I get what you mean, when you're alone, being a kid can be really lonely in a lot of ways. And so sometimes it's like, you take what you can get. I do understand that part. Let me elucidate. I do understand that part, is that sometimes because being a kid can feel so lonely, sometimes it can feel like, well, I I have something. So let me move back. I will retract some of my criticism of Dr. Moss. That could be what he's talking about. And because I'm taking a harsh stance because everything else he said is so stupid, I should be more fair towards that statement. All Whiteness needs for a receptor site is an original act of vertical mapping. Whiteness begins with this verticality. It then infiltrates you. You can feel it. It's like getting high. I can get high on being white? Bruh. I've been missing out. I didn't know I could get high on being white. Why would I have purchased all these drugs? Okay, sorry. I've actually never done anything besides a very little amount of weed. I don't smoke anymore. Well, I smoke marijuana whatsoever anymore. Anyway, and even when I did, it was like very rare. A new reality, an enhanced stature, a special community. You can breathe easier, feel protected, and watched over. You can then look down below you, and you can see the others like Bobby, and they seem to be drifting even further downward. Well, was Bobby white? He didn't answer that question. I think Bobby was probably white. He's white. Drifting downward. Okay, so yeah, you feel better than other people. And unlike you, they appear helpless and unprotected. Ooh, is this the white savior complex coming out here again? They fade into the distance, further and further away. Over there, permanently other now, permanently elsewhere. Again, this is a normal... Some of what he's describing here is normal. We do other people. It's a normal part of social identity and how we grow up. People who grow up in more mixed-race environments tend to not other people as much and tend to associate more with people of different backgrounds than people who grew up in a predominantly white society. Just as people who grew up in a predominantly Asian society or Black society or Hispanic society, it doesn't matter. It's based on what your mother looks like more than anything else. And everybody others each other. Did he say that Bobby wasn't white? Let's go to the first. Let's go to the first mention of Bobby. Sorry, we'll get back. I just wanted to see if he said he wasn't white. No. Bobby was my best friend. He had a speech impediment. No, there's no... He was disabled. There was no statement about Bobby's race. So, I would imagine the fact that he didn't mention Bobby's race probably means Bobby's white. Okay? Just my guess. I could be wrong. No offense again, Dr. Moss. I'm sorry if I'm being a little harsh, but this is bullshit, what you've written here. And I get the feeling there's going to be a retraction over this. Already I saw that they were trying to maybe change the title. We'll see what happens. You can simply... Actually, when I first saw this, I immediately was going to tweet at James Lindsay and be like, diss you, because I thought it was a joke. They fade into the distance further and further away. Over there, permanently other now, permanently elsewhere. Parasitical whiteness, in fact, functions as inherited property does. Okay, explain. You have received your due. You can simply claim what is yours. You can simply claim what you suddenly realize is yours for the claiming. See Whiteness's property, Harris 1993. We're at our second citation, lads! I wish I had like a... Pee Wee Herman, like, it's the word of the day. There's a citation. Because that would be about as rare. But with this claiming comes a fear of crash, of losing everything, of having it taken away. Oh, excuse me. Hang on, let me think about that for a minute. Wait, so, excuse me, and let me know what you guys think about this sentiment, chat. Parasitical whiteness functions as inherited property. You just... it goes back to that thing where you just think you own everything. You think you're better than everybody else, essentially. But also other races can be susceptible to this. But then when you feel that way... Oh, okay. This is the white fragility. All right. Sorry. Got a little bit off track there for a moment. I had to get back into this guy's kind of mindset. So he's saying that the reason why white people get upset by the ideas of white people being persecuted, by reparations, by wanting, by Ghazi Kodo types, is because they're just afraid of having this stuff that they stole taken away from them. And not really because they in any way think it could be persecution or unjust or unfair, but just because they don't want to lose their privileged status. So parasitic whiteness, bent first on dominion, now bends towards averse and then violent defense. Ooh, how's it violent, my dude? Defense, now a permanent necessity. Safety turns into anxiety, freedom into paranoia, escape into entrapment. Parasitic whiteness, promising health, deliver sickness. Okay. This is a condemnation, a refutation, and a mockery, essentially, of people who are concerned with white genocide. I probably can't say that phrase on YouTube, but it's the idea that white people are being in some way systematically through covert or non-overt means via the government and society outbred or made into second-class citizens. So he's saying that if in any way white people have anxieties, paranoias, feel entrapped, feel like society hates them, feel like there's, he's gonna conflate all this with that idea of white genocide, but he's conflating it with the idea that if white people think anything bad is happening to them within society, that they are losing rights, then it's all this paranoia, it's all insanity, it's this parasitic whiteness, and they're just afraid of losing their power. I'm just trying to reiterate what I believe he's trying to say here. I shunned the neighborhood's blind peddler. You're an asshole. My beloved Aunt Belle suddenly became too fat. You're an asshole. JT, the man who taught me how to drink out of a Coke bottle, turned into the black guy whose bottles I ought to avoid. I mean, was he putting shit in the bottles? I don't know. My immigrant grandparents became stupid You are an asshole. You're an asshole. This is your problem, dude. You either have some kind of psychopathy issue, you have some antisocial personality issue, you have some sort of personality defect that is making you feel this way. I don't think you can apply your own personal demons onto an entire race of people, and not just an entire race of people, but then externalize the concept of a race of people into a disease that affects anyone potentially if they get too close to the white people. Okay. This is very frustrating. This man is I truly believe deeply disturbed, okay? But these were merely personal relationships, each one weighed down with meanings and histories, weighed down, in fact, by love. But once these fraught transformations were in place, once I was willing to accept them, there emerged the easiest and most global transformation of all, as though I were simply learning to name a natural feature of my new surround. Can I say this word on YouTube? Probably not. It's not the N-word. I'm not going to say it, though, because I'll get banned. Okay. This word had now become Schwarzes. Oh. Oh, wait. Okay, well. I declined to comment. I declined to comment. No. There's no way I could comment on that and someone won't take it out of context. No. And with that, I was now mapped in the real world. I was no longer merely white, I was white. As Jared Taylor would say, white. Hokugen. I had property and properties, and with that last malign turn, this turn away from mere locality and towards a place in the natural world, a parasitic whiteness had firmly established its place in a compliant host. Oh no. I knew the whole thing was betrayal. Whiteness regularly leaves a little space like this for consciousness and memory, for the awareness of one's own treachery. Whiteness maps this awareness, though this residue of an original innocence, as yet another object to dominate, an interior disability, and as such, a threat to the whole enterprise, weak, sniveling, regretful, that must itself be kept ordered, maintained, and hidden, in effect, sent away to an interior school, where it too, this sliver of consciousness, is mapped as sub-apex object. I'm not sure what a lot of that meant, to be completely honest, but I don't think he probably knows either. In other words, he's saying that he had to, if I'm trying to translate, he's saying that he had to move these sort of subconscious thoughts or these paraconscious thoughts that he had about why he couldn't be friends with Bobby anymore, and create what we would call in the actual social sciences a schema around it to maintain his worldview. That would be my interpretation of this. A schema is a mental framework. A ghost of Bobby seems to have come back to me in the person of a current patient of mine. You shouldn't be teaching patients like this. Oh. He has no objectivity. Please, guys. I'm not that kind of doctor, okay? If you have psychiatric concerns for yourself, I would absolutely say, please go see a therapist. Go talk to somebody. It doesn't have to be a therapist. Just talk to somebody. Talk to someone. Don't talk to this guy. Okay? A current patient of mine, also born with a speech impediment. As I listen to him, I can see and hear Bobby, his tiny head, his nasal twang, not quite forgiving, but simply welcoming, no matter how long it's taken for me to get there, over to his side of the line, or in what amounts to the same identifactory thing, to bring him over to mine, not realizing the gift he's given to me. My patients treat me like an intimate. They really should not, when you do the things that you're going to do later in this paper. I could disappear, he says, and no one would notice. I remember in kindergarten, I was taken out of class and walked down the hall to a very small room. Dark, 4 of us, all of us with impediments. It wasn't the impediment really, but the method of dealing with it. They took me away. I deserved less than the others. Getting pulled out of class, defining, it locates me in a different category. That feeling has never really gone away. Must have been countless other moments. I tried to speak and they had no idea what I was saying. Was I at fault? Must have felt I was doing something wrong. I remember walking into the house with my dad. I was 5. He was trying to get me to say key, and I kept saying K. Back and forth, key, K. Seemed like 10 or 20 times. He couldn't stand me as I was. Somehow I was doing something wrong to him. He was so dead set on me saying key, I couldn't do it. It was somehow my fault. Very powerful emotion. Leave me behind. I'm not worth waiting for. Now that I've thought of that memory, the feeling that you're just worth abandoning is really powerful. I'm just something worth putting up with, nothing more. That quote is really powerful. This is a patient of his who he's quoting supposedly here. And yet he's relating this deeply personal experience with this person who struggled with a speech impediment to his fucking weird ideas about race. What does anything that I read there have to do with race? Well, according to Dr. Moss, it does. Quote, he couldn't stand me as I was, end quote. This might be the central anthem of entitled Dominion's objects. Misplace his wallet, forget a word, arrive late for dinner. My patient now will slam his head against a wall, bash his face with his fist, and scream at himself repeatedly, you idiot, you idiot. This kid had I'm not going to say fully abusive, but a father who wasn't understanding. This is not isolate to any race of people, okay? The end. God damn it. As long as he's an idiot, the word is mapped as a properly ordered one. Interfere with this self-directed violence, though, as the analysis occasionally does, and the patient is left feeling simultaneously homicidal and insane. The map, then, is calming despite its devastating cost. You're not treating him, though. You're clearly not. You're clearly fucking not. Well, he says homicidal and insane. Okay. All right, I'll take your word for it, I guess. Nothing else you've said here has been true. and I truly can't trust your freaking word, Dr. Moss. as anything. I think everything you've said here has been absolutely ridiculous. The map's workings in the world and in the consulting room. First, to sense the map's working in the world, listen to Lawrence Summers, former president of Harvard, former Secretary of Treasury, writing here in a confidential World Bank memo from 1991, quote, I think the economic logic behind dumping a load of toxic waste in the lowest wage country is impeccable, and we should face up to that. I've always thought that countries in Africa are vastly underpolluted. Their air quality is probably vastly inefficiently low compared to Los Angeles. And just between you and me, shouldn't the World Bank be encouraging more migration of the dirty industries into the least developed countries? If that's true... That's a real quote. Okay. Based. I'm joking. That's... If that's a real quote... What a lad. What a freaking mad lad. That guy's insane. Okay? That guy is actually insane. Lawrence Summers. I've heard of this guy. His name sounds really familiar. I think I've heard him say something else really crazy too before. Just dump trash into Africa. Okay? Although I don't know... It's all okay. My point though is that it's also very possible he's joking because it sounds like something a Disney villain would say. Do you know what I mean? It's possible that was a joke. He's either full on mustache twirler or that was meant at least somewhat in jest. Otherwise, that might be the most evil thing I've ever read. And I don't think that has anything to do with being white because as a whole white person myself, bruh. What? Though we all might identify with the superficial and manifest logic of whiteness. What? Oh, wait. Okay. Hang on. You have previously defined whiteness as being essentially the ego, as being aggressive, violent, taking things from other people, domineering over other people, destroying. That's what you defined the manifest logic of whiteness. Here, a number and equivalence, fairness and justice. We will refuse and resist both its explicit epistemology and entitled dominion and its covert and foundational logic of mapping. Excuse me? This mapping puts Summers' anxious, disenchanted swaggering on one side of the partition, the world as some combination of dump and zoo on the other. Summers is mapping reality by organizing it hierarchically. Okay, so here comes his issue too. He has, again, as he said here, and previously in this paper, said that it's this idea with fairness and justice and measurement and all the things that were in the Smithsonian publication as well, which, I can't recall the paper they were judging from. I could bring it up real quick, but I don't have it offhand. That this is all whiteness, fairness and justice and measurement and quantification. But also, whiteness is anxious disenchantment, swaggering, and wanting to dump and entitled dominion. So it's both fair and just, and also entitled and violent. Yeah, Tater Pictures, he's a Captain Planet villain. That's exactly... If that's real, no wonder Captain Planet was a thing. Holy crap. He has imagined the planet as conceived by an epistemology... Okay, wait, sorry about that. Dividing a once single and unified sphere into two, whiteness clean and whole, here. Its least developed objects there, far away, near the shithole. Okay. Well, let's be kind of real. A lot of parts of the world are kind of shitholes. Including parts of America, by the way, that the left generally hates. Like Appalachia, which they despise. We know the parts where the people are all fat because there are what they call food deserts, where people can't get to stores because they're too far away, because they don't have cars or they're unable to, everything's too far away. So it's fine for us to make fun of the shithole parts of America, because guess who lives there? In those food deserts. Guess who lives in those food deserts? Oh, it's white people, predominantly. And it's not, it shouldn't be about race. People should have equal access to goods, to life. They should have equal access. In America, you know. So, but he has no concern for those kind of people, and certainly would not see the hypocrisy in the fact that Democrats and the far left shit all over the shithole flyover states, as they call them, that they don't give a fuck about, and the people of whom they constantly denigrate and treat like idiotic plebs who are so dumb they don't know how to tie their own shoes. I find that kind of disparagement to be absolutely reprehensible. But alas. Summers exemplifies the map's workings in the material world. The following clinical examples, this is where it gets really messed up, lads, really beyond his own experience. here's where it gets really messed up, lads. We're actually kind of getting close to done, so I only meant for this to go like an hour, but we're gonna go probably 2. Are you guys enjoying this? I don't know. I hope it's... I'm not actually enjoying it. I laugh because it's a nervous laughter, because this makes me feel deeply uncomfortable reading this. I really hate this. I didn't really necessarily want to make a video on it. I might, like I said, I think in the beginning, but I figured it was better if I just read it and try to make it entertaining to the best of my capacity, which is nominal at best. Okay. The plane is formed by the intersection of psychic and material realities. Here's the clinical work stuff. Again, like I said, some of the stuff I'm going to read here is going to be deeply disturbing, because he's going to report on the things that his clients told him in confidence. Now, of course, the clients are anonymous, and that does make it fine to do this. It's completely okay for this to be published. However, I still find it... I find it morally dubious, and the reason why is because normally speaking, if I or anyone else was to publish, I mean, again, I'm not a clinical psychologist. I would never want to deal with patients. Not in a million years. Not in a million years. Not in a million years. Why am I uncomfortable? Because of the subject matter. The subject matter is yeah, like you said, it's hilarious and deeply disturbing, and that's why it makes me uncomfortable to talk about this. However, I think this needs to get out there. So, again, though, I, of course, would never work in a clinical setting. I have no desire to work with people one-on-one, because I would not be good at it. And again, you can publish stuff like this, but typically speaking, and the problem I have here with this from an ethical perspective, as one social psychologist or one social scientist speaking to another, is that it's fine if you want to publish things that you discuss with your clients in a confidential factor, and you remove their names and identifiable information. It's a totally different thing if you then apply a weird political idea to them and say, like, well, this just means that this person is secretly, like, has this weird whiteness. That I find to be morally wrong and ethically incorrect from an academic perspective, but that's just my perspective. Okay, so let's talk about case 1. Mr. A has been told that he is one of 2 finalists for a position he applied for. Out of an initial pool of 400 applicants, Mr. A, having undergone 3 extensive interviews, has been told that he will be informed of a decision after the weekend. The first session of the week, takes place on Tuesday. So the rest is the quote. There is an N-word in it. It's already been censored, and that is how I will read it. They still haven't called me. It's such bullshit. Should I read this in a voice? No, I feel bad for this guy. It's such bullshit. These imbeciles. It's not as though they are interviewing me for the Supreme Court. This is one level from the bottom. It's disgusting. The guy says he'll call on Monday, and then, to add to the humiliation, my answering service fails on just that day. I have to call the fucking secretary and ask her if perhaps her toad of a boss has found the time and the inclination to have called me. Sorry to bother her, but my answering machine isn't working. The lamest excuse in the book. I have to stoop to that. Even if it's true in this case, they have no reason to believe me. I hate when shit like that happens to me, because, like, they don't. They have no reason to believe you. To continue. To them, I'm groveling for their piece of shit job. It's outrageous, and he still hasn't called. He then calls me and says, by today. He promises, by noon, and now it's after that, and he still hasn't called, and all I can do is wait. I hate it. I hate them. But at a meeting just now, I almost lost it. I'm still worried about touching these people. I know you can't get HIV by touching, but still, small cuts, fingernails, there's always a chance, and these people are coughing, hacking things up, they're sick, and I don't want them touching me. And at the end of the meeting, this guy comes in late, very late, like he always does. He comes just to show up. He's not a real scientist. What? I didn't know that was in there. He's a fraud, filthy fucking N-word, comes in and fakes his way into my meeting, dirty, sick line N-word, and I'm there in the same place, maybe having to touch his hand. It's outrageous. This guy, okay, has anger issues, I'm guessing. He also clearly has issues with hygiene, okay? That seems to be his primary focus. He's mad. He's frustrated because of stuff going on in his life that's external to this. But it seems like he's a, what's the term? Again, I don't deal with clinical psychology much. A clean freak. He doesn't want to, what's the clinical term for that? You guys in the chat know. Particularly this HIV thing, by the way. I don't know when this was conducted, but a germaphobe, yeah, he's seriously afraid of germs. The HIV thing, I remember when I was a kid, and the HIV stuff was like being taught to us as children of like, you know, well, I don't know why we were being taught about it. I must have been 6. But it was we'd learned in school about like how HIV, maybe not in school, it must have been on the news actually. I think it was probably on the news. And I remember hearing about it though, and about how it could be transferred through blood. And then one time when I was probably 6 or 7, I was walking through a parking lot, or hypochondriac, panos economides, hypochondriac, thank you. Or germaphobe, maybe a combination of both. But I remember I was walking through the parking lot and like going to like the store, and I had sandals on. It was a summer, and I stepped on a Band-Aid that was on the ground with my shoes on, and I was terrified for like 3 days that I got AIDS. I'm like 6 or 7. And I mean, that's like, kids get confused by stuff like that, but when your brain's also, when there's parts of your brains that your brain is malfunctioning, or parts are not connecting correctly, or when you have a serious kind of trauma that can lead to a misprocessing between, you know, left and right brain and stuff like that. All of that can, and particularly when people, I think, who grew up in the 90s with that HIV stuff, I get why they're scared of it. But him using the gamer word, I mean, we don't even know if this other guy is black. Maybe he's just using the gamer word because he's mad, you know? We don't know. But either way, I mean, also, by the way, my dude, Dr. Moss, he was telling you this, he was venting to you in private as his psychoanalyst, and you went and published it. How do you think Mr. A feels? Whatever. Mr. A's entire orientation to the world is vertical. I can practically feel the sweat pouring out of him as he desperately tries to hold onto his place on his subject-object world sheer vertical wall. You mean the fact that he's out of work and he's trying to find a job? Yeah, what a freaking, white patriarch who's totally in power. The racial epithet bluntly marks and maps that sheer verticality. How about maybe he's just incredibly frustrated? He's clearly got mental illness issues that he's coping with. That's why he came to see you, you fucking dick. and he's out of work. Or he's trying to find a job. He's clearly deeply frustrated. It's like when PewDiePie said it. Sorry. It establishes a bottom of floor below which, under no circumstances, might Mr. A follow. Mr. A can fall only so far, can only lose so much, can only be so out of control. Mr. A maps the pejorative object beyond his limits. This object houses everything that Mr. A cannot bear to lose. Listen to the intimacy, the certainty in his voice. Yeah, the intimacy is because you're his psychotherapist, you ding-dong. The absolute conviction that he knows beyond any doubt the essential and particular characteristics of everyone on the map. Mr. A does no work. The map does it all. Verticality is omniscient. No questions, only answers. Okay, well, he's using this word verticality. What he's really talking about is cognitive heuristics. If this guy had ever taken a real class in any kind of, like, actual quantitative psychology course, he would know what the fuck cognitive heuristics are, but he doesn't, because he doesn't fucking know anything. Okay. Alrighty. In reality, things like this, like thinking that there's some kind of conspiracy. First of all, this person is psychologically atypical, okay? So you cannot take someone who is coming to a psychotherapist because they are mentally disturbed and use them as a representative of some kind of overwhelmingly psychological norm that represents society, because this is inherently psychologically atypical. That's why he's in your office, dipshit. That's so frustrating. You are taking psychologically atypical people who are suffering with mental illness, and you are ascribing mental illness onto a concept that you describe as whiteness, and then apply that to society at a large. How are you allowed to practice? How are you allowed to practice? If this is what look at how he thinks about his patients. Look at how he thinks about his fucking patients, dude. Oh my god. Oh, here we go. It's worse. Mr. A had sought me out because he heard I was the real thing. Well, thank you, Dr. Donald Moss, because now you have put onto display for everyone that you're in fact not the real thing. You're a very judgmental, kind of asshole-ish person. For some time, I could work with him, more or less effectively, by leaning on his idealization, by putting the vertical map to what I thought might be a benign use. I was at a loss, though, as to how his reliance on the map might be disturbed. A violent, incarcerated father. Okay, so he's got a serious issue in terms of his background and development as a child. An ineffectual mother with whom he had almost no contact. A steady use of cocaine. So he's on drugs. Weekends punctuated by physical altercations. He said seeing me helped him, quote, stay cool and out of trouble. The only intense emotion he expressed was rage, with attendant regret that he hadn't killed the offending party. This guy needs serious help. He has a lot of stuff in his background. And you, I don't think, helped them. 2 years into the analysis, he brought a tiny dog towards whom he seemed to feel intensely loving and protective. He became preoccupied with the dog, and less so with any of his demeaned objects. Then a woman entered the picture. She moved in, and suddenly it was the three of them, trying to set up a household. Nothing about him seemed to really change, except his preoccupations. He wanted to, quote, be good. Oh, this is the most depressing sentence. He wanted to, quote, be good, occasionally saying, with much conviction, to, quote, be like you. Oh, Mr. A, you don't want to be like this guy at all. He's awful. You do not want to be like this guy. He was busy with the woman and the dog, wanting to be good to both of them. He now needed money and therefore a job. It sounded like he needed that before. The work he found was not particularly elevated, and yet he put up with it. After a while, living what seemed to him a mediocre but decent life, he ended his analysis. So it sounds like he got over it, okay? And it sounds like you didn't fucking help at all. It sounded like him moving on, getting a dog, and finding a woman, and finding a job were the things that made him feel better, not going into you and ranting where you're clearly judging the shit out of him the whole goddamn time, which isn't the fucking point of psychoanalysis. Or it shouldn't be. God fucking damn it. The whole treatment was a strange experience for me. I hadn't done much except to put up with him. Oh, you angel. You deserve a medal for your work. To put up with your patient who was paying you to listen to him vent. To put up with him. To neither join in with nor aim to end his whiteness feud pejorative epithets. So you didn't even say maybe you should think about what you're saying. This guy's nuts, okay? The writer, Donald Moss, this is, you are displaying here a severe lack of empathy that I find truly disturbing. And again, as I brought up before, what appears to be, from myself as an external person who is not a clinical psychologist, would appear to me to be manifestations of antisocial personality disorder, okay? And yet, comparing how he was and how he became, I came to think that his time in analysis had been a success after he left. And you said you didn't care, and you just wanted to put up with him. That it had somehow turned out to at least resemble the real thing. He said nothing but nice things about you. He improved his life. You said you did nothing but put up with him, and you call yourself a success. The vertical planes of his life have been added to, pushed aside for now, not, by the way, by any of your doing. Sounds like by shit he did in his own life. By his affections for the woman and the dog, and maybe by his wish to become like me. Oh, you know he loves that. Oh, this is his favorite part. He loves it. Whatever he may have meant. Oh, and then he's got to throw it aside, like whatever he could have meant by that. I don't know, and play coy. What a piece of shit. Horizontal planes had emerged in the midst of the vertical ones. Not a cure, certainly, but a valuable remission, generating a zone of possibility. Okay, whatever. I remain almost certain, though, that given even slight provocation, parasitical whiteness will recur. Mr. A will resume his racist rants, his violent imagined solutions. What a great thing to say about your patient, who appeared to have gotten his life together. This next one's even more messed up. And has even less to do with whiteness, but it does in this crazy guy's mind. Case 2. A woman in analysis is speaking of her growing disgust at her male partner. She can barely tolerate his neediness, his insistence that they always be together. Increasingly restless and sexually unsatisfied, she has begun to threaten either affairs or a breakup. Her partner responds forcefully and repeatedly with an image that has long been present in their relationship. He says to her, quote, "That's not you speaking. I know you love me. It's the pink monkey you have inside you. That's what's talking. That monkey is crazy wild. You can't control it. You need me to keep it under control." The patient has a history of profound psychiatric disturbance. The idea of losing control terrifies her. For years terrified, she has joined with her partner in working to keep the, quote, pink monkey under control. The pink monkey, a dangerous animal demeaned by color, which he makes specific note of, names which she and her controlling partner agree is an invasive humanoid presence, the incarnation of a mad, dysregulating primitivity, located not outside where it belongs, but instead deep inside her interior. This woman is psychologically disturbed. She's probably schizophrenic, okay? Or has borderline personality disorder or bipolar disorder or something. This monkey she's talking about is her mental illness. It's her way of mentalizing it. It's her way of turning it into an object that she can understand. Her and I suppose her partner as well. But this is a way of her understanding her own mental issues. So let's see what this guy has to say about it. Long compliant, certain that he alone can keep her from falling apart, she stays with him and grows increasingly unhappy. At a crisis point in the relationship, she has a dream. Okay, I'm not sure about his analysis here. He could be right. He could be completely right. I obviously don't know this woman. I'm in no position to judge her in any way. That she's not just staying with this guy to help give her life a semblance of structure. That's often the case with people who have mental health issues. They will stay with someone who could be abusive because they feel that it gives their life structure. But yeah, Alabaster, it's how she's processing her mental illness. That's what I got from this description. Okay, so this is her dream that she had that she tells, again, to Dr. Moss here. I am with some people in a, quote, I am with some people in a sexual situation, not sure of anything, who they are, what they want. One is a boy or a woman, I can't tell. Then it's a woman, but she has a penis. It's a little boy's penis, I am excited. Then it's a woman again, and I look at myself, not sure what I have, what I am, a boy, a woman, whether I have a penis, I'm excited. Everything about it is exciting, scary. I had to read it in that voice, because people would take it out of context. But again, this woman has strange erotic thoughts and dreams. Okay? She begins speaking about the dream hesitantly, afraid it means she is becoming crazy again, perverse and sick. I say she seems to expect me to confirm that. Isn't that what you want psychoanalysts to do? Dude, I want you to do any kind of job besides be terrible to your patients. She says, Rule says I'm crazy, and you don't. Aren't you a cop too? This woman probably has schizophrenia. There's something wrong here with the fact that she's what's the specific type that is always in terms of drug abuse. This is usually, I think, meth. I think meth is the drug where people get really paranoid. I'm not sure though. I could be wrong. Where they think everyone's like a cop and everyone's trying to. Or maybe it's, I don't know, drugs. Maybe it's heroin or cocaine. I don't remember which one it is. I think it's meth, though. She begins to laugh. If that dream isn't sick, then what is it? So she admits there's something wrong with the dream. Laughing more, she exclaims, it's the pink monkey. That's what it is. The pink monkey is a sex monster. Every possible part, penis, boy, woman, me. Not so bad. Really, not so bad. Really kind of cute. Don't you think so? Her initial exuberance at finding herself happily aligned with an image that had long seemed an alien threat, fades in the sessions immediately following. Quote, I feel giddy, like a drunk. How can I trust this? How can I trust you? It's not knowing who to trust, what to trust. It's knowing what's real. This is what being crazy felt like. I say she might feel that I had aligned myself with the pink monkey and enticed her into sacrificing her partner's insistence on sane regulation in exchange for joining me in unlimited excess. So her partner wanted her to get help. And he's saying he enticed her into unlimited excess. A woman who sounds like this. This picture of me as a malign seducer reminds her of Robert De Niro's character in Cape Fear, a killer who entices an adolescent girl in order to gain vengeful access to her father, a policeman responsible for the killer's imprisonment. Yeah, he thinks he's Robert De Niro. These exchanges took place 5 years into he'd been seeing her for 5 fucking years. Those 5 years seem to carry weight as the patient contends with what she feels were, quote, 2 men, each of you out to get me on your side. I tell her I think she's at least partially right about me. I do want her to come over to my side. I think the image of the pink monkey is being used to frighten and restrict her, and that her fear of it is by now anachronistic, and that having developed her own capacities for control, the pink monkey is gratuitous and serves her partner's interests more than hers. She tells me she had to come to trust me over the years. Quote, without that, I don't think I could believe you now. Once she found her way out of the relationship with Raoul, she met a man who she told me is not afraid of what she wants. No more pink monkey, she says. Just me. Maybe pink. Maybe a monkey. This woman still sounds disturbed to me. And it sounds like you didn't do anything over the course of 5 years to help her other than to get her to break up with this guy who was trying to turn her mental illness into something that he could quantify. Countering the epistemology of entitled dominion, our work here was informed by what seems to me an epistemology of identification of identifactory obligation. Instead of aiming to segregate and dominate the potentially disruptive image of the pink monkey, the patient found a way to identify with it, to take it into herself, in an act that she herself called kind. We are the same flesh, the pink monkey in and me, she said. Again, this is her manifesting her mental illness. Yeah, I'm not sure if Raoul was abusive or not. He may have been trying to encourage her. We don't know. He only saw her. With this, she reconfigured the stage as the curious, turned the threat of disorganization into the premise of surprise. Identifactory obligation promises the possibility of permanent erotic contact, ever possible and ever uncertain, that entitlement and dominion had moralistically forsworn. Wait a minute. This part's really difficult, this whole... I mean, like, I find his entire analysis of her to be very disturbing, but... is his issue here that... Okay, I'm gonna guess what I think he's arguing for here, is that the problem with her former boyfriend is that he was trying to get her mental illness under control, and Raoul is usually a very white person name, by the way. But because Raoul was trying to get her mental illness under control, to put it into an object that they could identify, that he was controlling her, where really she wanted to be sexually liberated, and that his attempt to control her mental illness, to get it under control, is whiteness. I'm gonna guess. I already read some of this, but I didn't read this too closely. I think that's going to be his argument, that the attempt to get her mental illness under control instead of just engaging in sex as she feels sexual behaviors, which can be a symptom of various different mental disorders, engaging in risky sexual behavior that need medical, in terms of medication treatment, usually. Bipolar is one, for example. That instead, that him saying she should get this taken care of is whiteness. Okay. The pink monkey had been just transformed, the patient and Raoul, via a shared and perverse epistemology of entitled dominion, had relegated the patient's desires to the status of a mad animal in need of a cage. I think I'm right. Mapping her as a kind of domesticated zoo animal, dangerous without her trainer. Put in her dream to excellent use, the patient found a way to liberate the monkey, turning it into a blurred flurry of sexual parts, polymorphous, yes, but no longer frightening, instead a cute whir of desire. She was now enchanted by and identifying with what once had frightened her. In effect, in the dream, the monkey speaks, essentially seducing her, winning her over, showing his cuteness, making it clear that he need not be locked up, kept on a chain, and suppressed. The voice of perversion, capitalized for some reason, had banished the woman and her primitive pink monkey to a psychic version of the walled-off faraway territory. Her partner's control was a non-negotiable condition of her release. A shared fear of the pink monkey's unruly desires bound this perverse couple. Those desires marked a threat to order. This is it. I was right. The entitled dominion here camouflaged itself as benevolent protection against the reoccurrence of psychic breakdown, which had long ago disfigured her, just as the voice of order and protection that had marked and mapped my friend Bobby as disfigured. But here, first the dream and the patient work on the dream, counter the perverse partner's epistemology of the entitled dominion. The patient, trying to figure out what she can actually claim to know, joins her analyst in an epistemology grounded in uncertain, tentative, experimental interpretation. Dude, we get it. You're verbose. I don't think it actually means anything at this point. He really likes the word epistemology. The work of coming to know takes place right on the borderline. Patient and monkey speak to each other, both begin in states of false erudition, internal representatives of the false vertical dichotomy defining civilization here and the pink monkey barbarism there. Oh, that's it. I did think this before, that the pink monkey barbarism is like that's the rejecting of, if you allow for barbarism into your life, then that's rejecting whiteness. The patient, though, is not actually civilized, the monkey not actually barbaric. Both terms are in fact entirely imaginary. Any identifactory he uses this term identifactory as well, also a word that's unnecessary. Identifactory epistemology engenders the possibility of linking encounters across this imaginary divide. By the way, guys, like, when I read a regular study, there's no language like this in it. This is, when I read an actual study, first of all, we have word in actual published research, in actual journals that fucking matter. We have very specific word counts. So you save your words, and you use them very carefully, because you don't want to use this floral ass shit. It doesn't mean anything. Engenders the possibility of linking encounter across this imaginary divide. Enchantment is merely one of the means of eroding vertical disidentification. There are many others. Identification, looking for and finding likeness. This is the central clinical and social move that eradicates verticality and turns fixed hierarchy into mobile difference. This kind of clinical work, we're at the end here, guys. This kind of clinical work, dismantling... oh, wait, he has his conclusion, which is hilarious. This kind of clinical work, dismantling perverse structures organized around an epistemology of entitled dominion. This is his favorite fucking phrase, which I still don't really entirely understand, but we've been through this, and if I don't understand it, and if you guys don't understand it, I don't think he understands it. Turns interior vertical maps into interior horizontal ones. As such, this work eliminates at least one psychic receptor site for parasitic whiteness. What did he do for this woman? Do you understand? Like, he's talking about like how he did something for this woman and Mr. A. He didn't do anything for them. He did not do anything for these patients, and yet he's now praising himself for, like, here's how you have a vector for eliminating parasitic whiteness by turning its verticality into horizontal orientation. You didn't do shit, dude. You didn't do shit for either one of these people. You didn't do anything for them. And you haven't discussed anything here realistically. You talked shit about your patients, is what you did. And you talked shit about vast groups of people. Replace repulsion by desire and fear by delight, and a portion of the once perverse map turns horizontal. The once reviled monkey now dazzles, now an icon of vital possibility instead of devitalized excess. So in other words, he encouraged this woman to be a whore, okay? He encouraged her to sleep around, to do whatever the fuck she felt like, to abandon the relationship she was in, to give into her id, as I'm sure he would like to pose it, right? To give into her id and to abandon her ego, because the ego, according to him, is whiteness, okay? That's what he's stated upright, pretty much. Ego is whiteness, and ego is evil, so give into your id at all times. And with that transformation, parasitic whiteness loses some access to a now less susceptible host. So if you want to not be white, guys, just do whatever the fuck you feel like all the time. Epistemologies of identifactory obligation aim to reverse Freud's famous axiom and to arrive finally at this: where ego alone once was, there id must also be. Oh, hey, that's what I just said. I think he wants to eradicate ego. He wants it all to be id. For people who are not aware of the Freudian terms, the ego is sort of the sense of the self, and the id is just is pleasure, seek. What do I want all the time. It is always demanding we eat and have sex and do stuff that's fun, and the ego is the part of our brain that kind of says, well, hang on a minute, and the superego is the part that checks the ego and the id and balances them. According to Freud's work, which is bullshit, by the way, for the most part, it's all just conjecture, really. There's no evidence within anything we can quantify. Oh, we're almost done, lads. Oh my god, hang on. Okay. I only meant for this to be an hour. We're gonna go to. Psychoanalytic work then need not properly target whiteness itself here. Instead, it can effectively target the psychic receptor, sites that provide whiteness the interior vertical mapping on which it depends. The vertical map disrupts the identificatory bond that might once have bound subject to object. The bond persists, though, reshaped and hardened now into a vertical format. Identification morphs into disidentification, similarly into difference, affectionate care into sadistic cruelty. Diminish the spread and influence of these interior vertical receptor sites, and indirectly the parasite of whiteness is dislodged, loosed, itself becoming susceptible to the exposure, as a differentiated and alien presence. What the fuck does that mean? That means just given to your id. That's what he's saying. Psychoanalytic work in its most radical, fundamental, and finally neutral forms this is not neutral, my dude, targets any and all of the effects of vertical mapping. Where verticality was, there horizontality will be. Concluding notes. Where to stand? On what stable platform? To turn whiteness into an object for thought, one must first look through the point of stillness. Oh, he's loving puffing his farts, being poetic here. This point actually does not exist. Oh, it doesn't exist. Whoa. Oh my god, this is so pretentious. After all, whiteness in its mature form generates a volatile totality from which there is no clear exit, no clear escape. To pursue that exit, to hope for even temporary escape, of getting outside and looking back, of seeing where you seem to have been, depends, I think, on a kind of conceptual mobility, a willingness to use metaphors and similes for only as long as they serve, and then move on. For me, here, the most important of those metaphors have been parasite, mapping, and verticality. I can tell from the number of times these words have occurred in your manuscript. Each time, to me, both stable and elastic, capable of simultaneously supporting thought and providing a jumping-off point whenever that support felt exhausted. And of course, psychoanalysis provides something other than similes and metaphors. It provides a reliable theoretical/technical structure, one we can count on. Your patients couldn't count on it. Dude, your patients couldn't count on it. You talk shit about them. One which, in spite of its limitations, will hold up, has held up, as we all try to achieve the requisite conceptual, emotional, and personal nimbleness to grapple with the whiteness that, whoever we are, infiltrates our interior and exterior surround. Faculty, New York Psychoanalytic Institute, co-founder of the Green Gang, a 4-person collective working with climate change denial and the relation between the human and natural worlds. Chair, Program Committee, American Psychoanalytic Association, Dr. Donald Moss. This was submitted last year and only got published in May of this year. Wow. That's actually interesting that I didn't notice that this was in review for over a year. That might have been because of COVID, though. This guy's nuts. But let me try to explain what he's also. Bro, look at his reference list. Look at this beauty shit. Okay. So what this guy is trying to do is to apply Freud. I'll just reiterate one more time. To apply Freud and say that the id, just doing whatever you feel in the moment, that's good. That's not, and it's good because it's non-white. It's anti-white. So just doing whatever you feel like doing at any point in time. You feel like knocking over that Nike store? That's giving into your id. That's being non-white, and therefore that's good. However, if you want to take control of your emotions and get control of that pink monkey thing that's being deleterious to your psychological health, that's whiteness. That's bad. That's that ego thing that you're not supposed to listen to. He barely even mentions, by the way, the existence of the superego. I don't deal in Freudian psychology, okay, guys? Because it's bullshit. It's fucking bullshit. There's no evidence behind it. So, if my descriptions of the id and ego and superego have been less than stellar, that is absolutely on me. It's not my area of study. What this guy has done here. I'm not going to read his extra citations. I don't think they're of interest or use. I mean, they might be, but someone else can do that. I mean, it would be funny if someone sent this document to, everybody in the skeptosphere or something. It'd be really funny if that happened. I mean, I don't know who would do something like that, but... yeah, so this was awful. is truly deeply... Like, this is not my field, okay? Psychoanalysis, it's not my field. I do actual, like, quantitative and qualitative media psychology and social psychology. I just find everything about this so utterly reprehensible on every level. From the way that he treats his patients, that's the worst. That's the big that's the big number one irredeemable aspect. To the way that he has to put everything into this bizarre frame of race when nothing he talked about here besides the fact that one of his patients dropped a gamer word has anything to do with race. It's completely separated from it. And yet, for some reason, we're at such a point in society where this kind of critical race theory-esque thinking has invaded and become so pervasive within all different types of research, even psychoanalysis, that this guy's sitting here listening to patients for 5 years and being like, oh, well, you have a problem with your boyfriend and you have deeply disturbed psychiatric issues. That's because that's your pervasive whiteness of not allowing your id to take over your ego. How is this guy allowed to practice? That's my issue. I know that most of what I read tonight... Hey, he is. How you doing? I know most of what I read tonight. I tried to bring it levity, and I tried to put it into context. But I know it still doesn't make sense. I tried to make it make the most sense that I can, but I also am not... I'm not a psychoanalyst. This is not my field. It's full of jargon that... It's not even jargon, because, like, the words I understand. It's the... way he wants to use them that's so confusing. Anyway. I don't know really what else to say. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I just wanted to actually, in my conclusory thoughts, I wanted to actually read this because I've seen a lot of people reading the abstract, and this abstract is awful, okay? Like, the abstract sounds really bad. It sounds really dumb. But then when you read the paper itself, it's actually so much worse. And I do want to say that not only did I pay for this paper, I think I did a pretty good job of providing a lot of commentary for it at every given point. So, just saying, I think this is fair use. But, moreover, this is very disconcerting to me as to what this means. Not like in the big... Like, this is one thing. This is one iota. This is nothing in and of itself on its own. But the fact that someone can publish something like this, which defines basically the state of being white as a disease that parasitizes people, and that if you even are around white people, you can catch this disease of allowing your ego to overwhelm for even a little bit your id, to at any point in time not be completely driven by your instantaneous desires. That is a very disturbing proposition. Animation Unlimited, I've edited and finished up my audio section, so the video should be up in about a week. It's very long, though, so it might take me a little bit longer than usual. It's an hour and a half of audio, or a little bit less than that. But it's going to take me a long time to edit the video itself. The audio took forever to record, because it's hard to record an hour and a half of decent audio. And then it took me... also, it was my birthday. And then, so I took kind of a day off. But yeah, there should be a new video should be out in a little over a week, I'm guessing. Anyway, I just wanted to stream on this tonight. It's 1 in the morning, so I'll probably go to bed. But before I go, I just wanted to thank you guys so much for showing up and dropping by. If I got any Streamlabs, I didn't notice them, but it's okay if you guys didn't. Because I don't know how much Did you guys send any? I didn't notice them. If you did. Either way, it doesn't really matter. I just wanted to go over this and get this out there. Because I found it to be deeply, deeply concerning. But let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment down below. This video will stay up on this channel, of course. I'm not going to upload it anywhere else. Anywho, yeah. I hope you guys had a good time, I guess. And with that, I guess, I hope you all have a wonderful Thursday into Friday evening, and a great weekend. And again, a video on villains, and I don't know if I got any Streamlabs. I didn't notice them, but it's okay if you guys didn't. Because I don't know how much I... Did you guys send any? I didn't notice them. If you did, either way, it doesn't matter. I just wanted to go over this and get this out there. Anyway, yeah. I hope you guys had a good time. And heroes and stuff like that will be out in about a week. And hope to see you then on the main channel. All right, thanks guys. Take care. And as always, I'll ton of